Welcome to Aspirations Over Hesitations, the podcast for high-achieving women whose ambitions are bigger than their fears. I'm your host, Alli Eldridge. As a mom, wife, and Fortune 500 company retiree, I know what it's like to wear many hats while still wanting more out of life. Whether it's stepping off the corporate ladder to lean into motherhood, healing yourself from chronic health issues to bring home that miracle baby, or launching your own business, you'll be inspired by stories of women who are going for the big things in life, in spite of anxiety that they too have experienced. Here, you'll find a community of moms who can relate to wanting what others say is impossible. They embrace alternative ways of thinking, working, and being, even when it comes with some uncertainty. One thing's for sure. If you want to live an unconventional, extraordinary life full of freedom and flexibility, you have to be willing to do things a little differently. Are you ready to say yes to choosing your aspirations over hesitations? Let's jump in. Hey everyone. So we are back for part 3 of my story on how I quit corporate without ever quitting my job. And this is where things get really interesting. So right before I was scheduled and planning to go back to my job at the end of my leave, I got a text from my boss, and she asked me to hop on a call with her. And I just had a feeling before I even got on the call that something big was about to happen, something that I had thought of and contemplated, but never thought in a million years that it would actually happen. I got on this call and was told that my position had been eliminated and I was laid off. And it was honestly so surreal because in a way it was such an answered prayer and a dream come true that I was free. I was able to leave corporate with more financial support than I would have had otherwise. Many large Fortune 500 companies offer pretty generous severance packages. And I felt just so blessed to be taken care of in such an amazing way. Like I had already decided that I didn't want to do this life anymore. I didn't want to be the working mom that had a traditional job, and I realized the impact that it was having on my health, and I ultimately knew that I needed to prioritize myself and choose myself. And I had committed to doing that. And then right before I could take that final action and step, something happened that was so much better. And my grandmother always used to say, if not this, something better. And that is exactly what happened in my personal corporate exit plan. That day, it was like a leap year and a leap day. And I'll never forget it. It was such a euphoric day. I was in disbelief. I couldn't believe that it had happened. I, in a way, felt like really sad because I had planned to see my team again and talk to my team again and have a transition plan, and now that wasn't going to happen. And there was some grief around that for sure. That was not the way that I was planning to go out. But I also did see personally what a gift this was, and really just sat with that gratitude and appreciation for this miracle moment. After I had some time to process the news, I decided to move forward with a life coaching certification program. So I knew that I was interested in helping other people. I had started to personally see the impact of our subconscious on our life and our thoughts on our reality. And I really wanted to help other people figure out how to tap into some of that to get the things that they wanted in life. But I also wanted some more formalized training on how to help people do that, because even though I had a lot of skills from being a leader in corporate and having a team, I knew that it was different to help people with some of this mindset work and some of this deeper work that is required in the coaching space. And so I started that program in the spring, and as I was going through it, I also was sharing on social media just bits and pieces of my story, my journey, putting myself out there. It definitely was a little bit scary, especially because, and I know this is not unique to me, I've heard a lot of people say this, but sometimes when things are going really well for you and you're like super happy and on cloud nine, not everyone in your life is going to be on cloud nine about your big changes and your big news. And some people that were close to me were not happy and they weren't really super supportive. And that was hard when it did come to like putting myself out there and just not knowing what people would think or not wanting them to take it the wrong way, especially people that I had been super close to. But I knew that I had to do it because I knew that there were so many people who I didn't even know personally who my story could help. And as I started talking about it more, I was getting messages on Instagram from people in Canada and Finland and like all of these different parts of the world that were going through what I had been going through and feeling the same way. And that was super, I don't know, just like humbling and validating and inspiring to me. It definitely inspired me to keep going down this path. At the same time, my husband was also working really hard, putting himself out there to get additional clients, increase his fees. He had done a lot of work to make up a good portion of my income, although it still wasn't all of it. And we still were trying to figure out like longer term, what the plan would be and how we could get back to a level that we felt really comfortable with. And I say this not to brag, but I say this because I know there are so many people that were in the exact same shoes that we were that are trying to figure out how to have one spouse, most likely the mom, be home more with the babies, and they're just feeling like financially, how are we going to make this work? And I just want to make it super, super clear that in our case, we did the work. Like we definitely had plans. We had lots of sit downs where we looked at our money and we looked at just everything related to our money and we did all the math. We did that, but there were still some gaps or question marks. And we also trusted that at the end of the day, we were smart and we were savvy and we both had skills that were valuable, and we did trust that we would figure it out and that God, the universe, like whatever you believe in, would help us figure it out in combining like doing the work with that piece of faith as well. So I say that to hopefully encourage you, like if you are wanting to make a move, but you feel like you don't have all the answers, like try to have 80% of the answers and then be willing to take the risk. Like you have to take a little bit of a risk and trust that the other things will fall into place. And that's exactly what happened for us. I was completely shocked at the end, well, I guess the beginning of this year, when my husband was going through some paperwork for our taxes, and he was like, hey, outside of that 1 year where you got that like super unexpected surprise bonus, you made the most money that you ever made in 2024. And I was like, what? The year that I left corporate, that I didn't work really a day in corporate in 2024. And with all of this combined, just made the most money. And that was another just miracle moment and proof point to me that all of this work does add up. Like I said, whatever you believe in is fine. Like sometimes I say the universe, sometimes I say God. I don't necessarily think that they're interchangeable, but I do believe in both. I do believe that God definitely provided for us in many ways, that I had a lot of prayers and things that I put out there that he heard, and he, moved mountains to make happen. And then I also, from him, received a lot of intuitive hits and nudges, and even said certain things or made comments at certain times that were these little inspired actions that led to the end result happening. I think that when you decide what you want and you do start taking those inspired actions, the universe will move things for you. And in some cases, it will be better than you expected, or better than you could have ever planned yourself. So that is how I quit corporate without ever quitting my job. I know it sounds crazy. It was such a crazy moment for me. I will never, ever forget it. It was definitely one of the biggest things I've ever manifested. I have an email that I send out sometimes to people on my list that talks about my favorite manifestation techniques. And so if you want to receive that, you can sign up in the link in the show notes, and I will send that over to you. I have always been into manifestation. My grandmother taught it to me when I was younger. Not taught it to me, but like she just talked about her faith and her beliefs, and some of the tips and the tricks that she liked and that she encouraged from kind of that positivity, abundance mindset. And as I have had different opportunities to apply those to my own life, I see that it always does work out. It really does. I know it doesn't always make sense in the moment. And one of my favorite quotes ever, which I think I first heard this quote when I was in high school, Steve Jobs said it. It was in a commencement speech that he made, I believe, at Stanford. But it's that you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. And that is this experience that I had at the end of my corporate career was exactly that, where when I was in the thick of it, it was so hard. I was so upset. I was so hurt. I was sad. I had a lot of grief and just anger and all of the things. And then at the end, when I saw how it all played out, I was like, oh, that had to happen so that could happen. The reorg had to happen so that I could have the ending that I wanted, which was eventually exiting corporate altogether. But I also needed to get there mentally by doing some of the healing work and figuring out what I wanted and what I didn't, and how the job that I had led to the lifestyle that I had, and that led to my health state and just some of the decisions that I was making related to that. If any of this resonated with you and you want to hear more about my story or receive some of my favorite manifestation techniques, sign up for my email newsletter. It's called the AE Insider Club. I would love to have you there. Sometimes I send stories or things that I've written in the past that I do not share anywhere else, including on social media, because some of it's just too personal to me, and I want to make sure that I am holding some things back for the people that are really invested and part of my inner circle. So if that sounds like you, click the link below and leave a review on this episode if you enjoyed it. I would love to hear from you. Thanks so much for listening. I'll see you next time.